Some of our biggest opponents against a hemp measure would include oil companies, and we're not talking just about the Exxon Mobils. We're not talking necessarily, although they are a portion of this. We're also talking about the oil companies that are right now involved in fracking in Kansas. When you're talking 1 million gallons of fresh water per one hole, that's a lot of water. It's an enormous amount of water. And reports out of Pratt, Kingman, and Great Bend indicate that some of these guys are running around out there drilling water wells and stuff without getting the necessary permits. They're rushing to get this done without the benefit of following the law. They definitely don't want this, not right now. They see it as an intrusion, and it really doesn't need to be an intrusion on them. There's more than enough out there for everybody. It's, the oil companies are going to continue to sell gasoline and diesel. The oil companies are going to continue to have the pipeline service going and everything like that. We're not talking about shutting it all down right now. What we're talking about is maybe alleviating some of the groundwater resource drain that we're encountering right now. Even though Big Pharma really has nothing to fear with this legislation, they're still going to fight it because they don't want to see that. I'm sure they see this as the eventual first step towards medical marijuana legislation. And if you look at the campaign finance reports of people like Brenda Landwehr, who's been the head of the Health and Human Services Committee for so long, it's like a who's who in Big Pharma. She stopped representing Kansas patients years ago. She's been bought and paid for by the big pharmaceutical companies and managed healthcare services to the point to where a bill like ours, she will not even give the common decency to listen to.
You couldn't give this stuff away to people that smoke. I mean, it's just that simple. There is no THC in it. And in fact, one of the requirements of any hemp product is that it contain less than 3% THC, which at those levels are negligible. There's nothing to it. You've got to see 7, 8, 9% before people will even get a buzz off of it. To say that it's undistinguishable from marijuana products is wrong. Maybe 4 or 5 samples. You take those samples, and those samples are sent into the lab. They get, first of all, they check to make sure that there is absolutely no THC in it, or that it abides by guidelines, less than whatever percentage we set. Then they also have the opportunity to save samples for possible DNA plotting later, which is a big deal because with that, we'll be able to follow any changes and things like this and to develop even better strains in the future. Now, currently, in medical marijuana states, and this is another reason why we really should look at medical marijuana too, there is a device called a CannaSense. This device was developed by Steep Hill Labs to almost instantly recognize different strains and to tell you what your THC content and cannabinoid profile are for the different strains. Within minutes of the time you put your sample into the machine, you have that readout. Okay? What's to stop that same technology from being adapted, say, by K-State into a machine that would do the same thing and have the profiles for hemp products in it as well? If we were to pass medical marijuana, we would have the technology available to us that could then be worked on with K-State. Or if K-State were to, say, make an agreement or go into a partnership with Steep Hill to develop a hemp technology and a hemp profile catalog along the same lines. Shouldn't take very much at all, and it could be paid for with a split from the proceeds from the permit sales.
Yeah.
A certain percentage of the proceeds from that would go to the state's general fund. A percentage of that proceed would go to pay for the testing from each of the deals, and a certain percentage would go to the sheriff's department in those counties to help promote training and other programs that the sheriff may have in in those areas. We're not against law enforcement. We're just against law enforcement making assertions that they can't justify or substantiate. Everyone is talking right now, especially in Topeka and everything, about how taxes are such a bad thing and they're overbearing people. And well, here's the opportunity to alleviate it. Everyone has an idea that we're paying too much in taxes, and that's true. But you can't justify eliminating those taxes without first providing an avenue for increased revenues to fulfill the gap that you're going to have from those property tax and sales tax receipts. So if we give the farmers the ability to grow hemp, now you've instantly set about a snowball effect, because first the farmers start growing. There are markets out there right now. We've got a biofuels plant in St. John that could desperately, that project could kick right back up and get started again if we just pass this measure. That's going to put 30 people to work in St. John almost immediately, right after the construction is finished. But until then, you got people going to work in the construction trade to build it. Okay? So we're going to start with those people out in St. John. One of the worst, hardest hit areas of the state is during the recession. You couldn't beg a job out there in a lot of places out there. All right, let's start with them. Now, in helping them, we're going to open up some other doors. Those doors are to other companies that utilize materials and products that could be made from this. Most people don't realize that the leaf matter and stuff can be compressed and baled and made into some of the best horse bedding on the face of the earth. It does a much better job of controlling the smell of ammonia from urine than either wood chips or sawdust or hay and straw. It just does a much better job. And it even has a byproduct of the process of this. It's another revenue stream. It's just something else.
There's so many uses.
There's so many uses. So we're going to start setting about a snowball effect. And what we're going to end up with is plastics companies utilizing hemp plastic. We're going to end up with concrete companies and companies that make bricks. You're going to see a lot more interest in hempcrete. A lot of the highways and projects and stuff use a fiberglass reinforced concrete so that it doesn't crack and swell and split like other concretes do. Okay, what if our highway projects, instead of using fiberglass, used hemp glass? Ooh, now we're already saving the environment.
Right. This is all renewable.
And it's all renewable. It's not like someplace where, if you work in a company for a company that makes fiberglass, you've got to be in protective equipment all the time. You can't breathe it. You can't. You get it on your skin,
right.
And it just.
It's like, what are we messing with? What is this stuff?
Hemp glass doesn't do that. It doesn't chew up your skin and your hands. True, you never want to inhale dust particulates or anything like that. So you're going to want to have a dust mask, but it's not like the chemicals that you're going to be putting in your body if you're breathing the fiberglass materials. Wichita State University has a composites lab that works with the aircraft and automotive industry, developing new techniques and new procedures, new components and compounds and things like that. You telling me that the glues and the glasswork that is comparable with Kevlar as far as strength and durability go? I could see aircraft bodies in the future made from something we grow in a field instead of something that we pump in a boat and then ship over here from Saudi Arabia
Right.
and distill and refine. I think I prefer the former. You know, we've got. I mean, if you take a look at all the different things, all the different little avenues, maybe 50 jobs here, 100 jobs there, 200 there. Pretty soon those jobs start adding up. Now, I haven't heard one single solitary politician anywhere offer a new source of revenue. Every single one of them says, well, we need to develop this technology, or we need to develop this technology, or we need to lower taxes to stimulate. Well, what are you going to stimulate? You've got to have some kind of a business to stimulate. If you're expecting further advances in technology, services, and products that we already have to fill the gap, it may not come. Let's look at broadening our horizons and expanding the scope of our vision to include new products.
Which aren't really new.
And yes, exactly, they're not new. Textiles made from petroleum and petroleum products that if you put them anywhere close to fire or flame, poof, they're gone. If if you throw them away in the trash, when they've come to the end of their serviceable life, they're going to stay in our.
It's like toxic.
Yeah, they're going to stay in our landfills for the next 1,000,
Like
2,000 years.
Like the pile of trash floating in the ocean out there
Yeah.
on the sides of Texas.
It's going to be there forever. So we need to kind of reduce that. Who's to say that if we pass this measure and a company out there, a plastics company, says, hey, we're going to start making water bottles out of this product because this hemp plastic actually deteriorates.
Biodegrades.
It biodegrades in about 55, 60 years instead of 1,000 years. What if we made all our water bottles? Because there was such a huge deal made out of just conserving or not producing as many water bottles.
It's just easy.
People reusing them and stuff. Well, what if we made them out of hemp instead? The people we have in place can't tell you why it should be illegal. I don't know how many people saw Michelle Leonhardt, the director of the DEA, before the House committee, or I believe it was the House committee in Washington, when she was questioned concerning marijuana. She could not answer the very most basic questions that any third grader in an American school system can answer.
Crack worse for a person than marijuana?
I believe all illegal drugs are bad.
Is methamphetamine worse for somebody's health than marijuana?
I don't think any illegal drug
Is
good.
heroin worse for someone's health than marijuana?
Again, all.
I mean, either yes, no, or I don't know. I mean, if you don't know, you can look this up. You should know. This is the Chief Administrator for the Drug Enforcement Agency.
Let's start breaking down the walls of ignorance and deceit and start moving towards an open forum where people can see for themselves what we're talking about.
Let me ask you this. Do you have what is your number one drug you're fighting? What's your priority?
Well, our priority right now is pharmaceutical drugs.
All right. And what's your second priority?
We don't prioritize specific drugs because the organizations that we are going after are polydrug.
So you're not going after the drugs for the harm they do. You're going after the drugs because of the effect it has on these organizations, and you're going after the organizations. Is that right?
We're going after the organizations that are having the most impact on our communities,
Right.
supplying the most drugs and the most violence.
Right. So you're going after so if the fact that meth or crack or heroin is causing the most damage to individuals, if that's not the number one choice of the crime syndicate, it's not your number one choice. Your number one choice is the crime syndicate, not the fact that heroin and meth and crack are destroying people's lives.
So for instance, the Colombian cartels, which are a priority,
Right, they have all this drugs, right?
are the primary source for methamphetamine, cocaine, and a good amount of the heroin on the streets.
Right.
They're a priority.
So that's your number one priority, is going after that cartel.
Our number one priority is going after those that most impact the United States.
And do most
right
of those
now,
cartels
it would be
emphasize, what are the drugs they emphasize in their arsenal?
the Mexican cartels, polydrug. It's cocaine, meth, heroin, marijuana.
Right, marijuana is fourth. Would you agree that marijuana causes less harm to individuals than meth, crack, cocaine, and heroin?
As a former police officer, as a 32-year DEA agent, I can tell you that I think marijuana is an insidious drug.
That's not the question I asked you, ma'am. Does it cause less damage to the American society and to individuals than meth, crack, cocaine, and heroin? Does it make people have to kill to get their fix?
I can tell you that more teens enter treatment.
Can you answer my question? Answer my question, please.
I'm trying to. It causes harm because it's young people that are using it. If you're talking about the
It's
violence,
not just young people, but you're trying to answer the question like I'm Jeff Sessions. I'm not Senator Sessions. I'm asking you a question. Does meth, does crack, heroin cause more damage to society and does meth and heroin cause more deaths than marijuana?
all drug trafficking causes deaths. I don't have a breakdown of how many
Aspirin,
deaths.
does aspirin cause deaths?
I'm talking about the illegal drugs. I don't have a breakdown for you of how many deaths are caused by cocaine and how many are
Let me ask you this. Have you ever seen a person who had cancer and used marijuana to help them eat or to alleviate their condition of someone suffering from terminal cancer?
No, I have not.
And if you had, and I have, and seen that it helps them with their appetite and makes them smile, would you agree that it has some benefit to society for somebody who's dying, maybe a Navy SEAL who spent his life working and defending this country and is emaciated to 120 pounds, and that marijuana is the only thing that makes him eat and makes him smile, according to his 80-year-old mother? Is there not an efficacious situation there?
I think that's between him and his doctor.
Well, if it's between him and his doctor, why does the DEA take a position that medical marijuana is wrong, which you've taken? You've taken the position it's not between him and his doctor. You have a publication, which on page 6 of your publication in 2011 has the most insane and banal paragraph. The legalization movement is not simply a harmless academic exercise. The moral danger of thinking that marijuana
Gentleman's
is...
time has expired. The gentlewoman from California.